abandoned ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod. Jesus!
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and another episode of our sub-series Rebels Talk Part 3, where your co-host and I, Blake and I, go back and we rewatch Star Wars Rebels chronologically from beginning to end and dive deep into each episode and break it down. We talk about the characters, the story arcs, make connections, and more. And today we're going over episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 from Season 1. Let's dive into it.
Another happy landing.
All right, another episode of Rebels Talk. Welcome back, Blake.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here. Rebels! Rebels!
Rebel!
Rebels!
One way out! One way out!
Those aren't even rebels, they're just prisoners.
That's Andor, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you see, this isn't related to Rebels, but did you see Star Wars Celebration? There was a whole bunch of people that dressed up as the prisoners, and they just ran around Celebration screaming one way out.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
So good, yeah.
It got me thinking, like, that looks like the most comfortable Star Wars costume, so we should all go with that.
It does. It looks like one of the cheapest to make as well, you know, like just a white jumpsuit, you know?
I'd be up for that. The Celebration will join in the crowd. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Another episode of, speaking of Andor, going back, Rebels Talk, what we're doing is we're going back all the way to Star Wars Rebels and rewatching it after 9-10 years, going on 10 years old, rewatching it from the beginning all the way through the end. This is an experience that's kind of different for both of us because it's been a little while since I've seen it, and I forget the last time you watched the show. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Watching it, paying like close attention and being really into it, it was years ago. But I had recently just thrown it on in the background while I playing games and stuff. So like
right. So for us to rewatch,
even since then though, like rewatching it for the show, I missed a lot doing that. So
yeah. So for us to kind of go back now with all this pre-existing knowledge of all these other shows, Andor, the Clone Wars finished. We have the Bad Batch. So many of the Star Wars, the Jedi games, Fallen Order and Survivor, Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's so many stories now that take place between episode 3 and 4. And it's been a bit of an enlightening kind of way to, watch it after all these years, having all this other context for the events of the galaxy going on at this time period. And it's really sort of changing some perspective, at least for me. So it's really cool to kind of go back and rewatch the show, and especially leading up into Star Wars Ahsoka. So, it's let's kick things off with the next episode of our list, and a quick reminder to our listeners who may not be aware of what we're doing. Major spoilers ahead for the following Rebels episode. Season 1, Episode 5, Rise of the Old Masters. Season 1, Episode 6, Breaking Rank. Season 1, Episode 7, Out of Darkness. And Season 1, Episode 8, Empire Day. Always check the description in these Rebel Talks episode for the list of episodes that we plan on reviewing. And that way you can prepare yourself and watch those episodes ahead of time and then listen to the podcast. So make sure you stay ahead of us by about 4 episodes or so, because that way when the podcast drops, you're all good to go. So here we go. Rise of the Old Masters, directed by Stuart Lee. Writers include Henry Gilroy and guest stars Brent Spiner. Isn't that crazy? The Star Trek Brent Spiner. The air date of this episode was on October 27th, 2014 on Disney XD. And the summary goes, Ezra has started his Jedi training, but struggles with the basics, while Kanan also struggles with his new role as a mentor. The rebels discover an underground transmission reporting that Jedi Master Luminara Unduli has survived Order 66 and is being held in a high-security Imperial prison on Stygian Prime. Frustrated with his own inability to teach Ezra, Kanan leads his crew to rescue Luminara, hoping that she would be a more capable teacher for Ezra. Upon reaching her cell, Kanan and Ezra discover that Luminara is long dead and that her remains are being used as bait by an Inquisitor to lure the Jedi into a trap. The two work together to escape the Inquisitor before Hera rescues them aboard the Phantom. After Ezra reveals his insecurities over Kanan trying to give him another mentor, Kanan resolves to train Ezra himself. Off the bat, what did you think of this episode?
I like this one. Oh, this one actually had a lot of really interesting. I guess you would say call it story point, but I thought what they did with Jedi Master Luminara was super interesting, and that was a really good way to introduce the Grand Inquisitor, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, this is the first time that the Grand Inquisitor introduces himself to the Jedi, to the protagonist of our story. Mm-hmm. And it's just I think I brought this up in last week's Rebels Talk, where I kind of suggested that the beginning of the season was a little bit dated, perhaps, just the way that they introduced what Inquisitors are to people, because release order wise, it was the first time people saw Inquisitors. Right. So it hasn't really sat too well with all the other content that's come out since then with Inquisitors. But this was kind of the first time that Grand Inquisitor pops out, and introduces himself to Kanan. Did you recognize perhaps any dialogue that perhaps may have aged more than it should have, or anything like that, or did this whole event feel fine to you?
Well, I feel like you're saying that because it's probably something, but nothing stood out to me.
No, it's not a trick question.
Okay, I'm like, when are you leading that? We're going somewhere with this? Yeah. Nothing really caught my ear that was like that. Not in this episode. Anything goofy, like when Vader was talking to the High Inquisitor last episode, or the last time we saw him. Mm-hmm. I think the main thing that I really liked about it, though, is it just seems very Sithy to use a dead Jedi's corpse to try to lure in other unsuspecting Jedi. I thought that was a really cool concept. But admittedly, I don't really understand how it would work, because, Kanan said her presence felt clouded. But how if she is dead, as the Inquisitor confirmed, how would they be able to project her presence like that?
I kind of wondered that
Sith
myself.
Magic, I guess. I don't know.
Well, so in Clone Wars introduced us to the holographic disguise matrix technology, which is like a kind of like a hologram that works like a disguise. And I imagine it's probably a similar piece of technology in which, it's got like basically like a full scan of her that it's able to utilize as kind of a decoy. And then, naturally, of course, it's probably that, it's not just the hologram, but it's the presence of that person's body preserved as much as possible that allows Kanan to feel the presence of that person, but it's absent, right? There's something wrong about it. So I think that's maybe his way of describing what that feeling was like to Ezra was, it feels clouded, but why does it feel clouded? It turns out, well, she's dead. But I just I thought that was also kind of interesting. The way that they use her body to lure Jedi. I guess it's a combination of technology and using the body to kind of drive the Force.
Yeah, it's got to be some sort of Force stuff going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. This episode kicks off kind of interesting. Ezra's training on top of the ghost, just as they're flying or hovering there or whatever.
Yeah, I gotta say, for a Jedi practicing early stages of using the Force, I wouldn't expect to be. If that were me, I wouldn't be expecting to have a droid throwing milk jugs at me.
Yeah, I thought that was like, man, Chopper is so vicious. Like, you know, I don't
He's
think
a dick.
yeah, like he could have killed that kid, and he just, I don't know, he just
He's
doesn't care.
laughing.
Yeah,
He's laughing the whole time. He loves it.
Yeah. I could just imagine Dave behind the mic going,
And they gotta retime it.
yeah. You're gonna have to retime this, but I'm just gonna laugh, all right? Because I'm trying to kill Ezra right now. I really hope Dave never listens to this. The underground transmission is it looks like I never finished. The underground transmission is Luminara Unduli. There's some sort of person somewhere. Did you catch it? It was like a broadcast that someone has, and they're not showing their face, and just some previous knowledge that adding to this is that we eventually find out who this person is, but it's a bit of a twist, so don't need to get into it, but this it's kind of a suspicious thing that this person has information on such an obscure event of the Empire moving Jedi who should long have been killed off. And Inquisitors are just supposed to kill the Jedi. They're not supposed to, take them prisoner, right? So I thought that whole thing it's got a funny feeling about it, at the very start. And then sure enough, when they go and rescue her, it's a trap. It's clearly a trap set by the Inquisitors. So I don't know if that already kind of tells you what you need to know about this broadcast. Maybe it's either fake news or like, someone's obviously working with the Inquisitor, whatever. But it's there's something off about the whole event of this underground transmission and kind of like the intel that people have on this thing, right? So I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not, but
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
yeah.
Okay.
We got our first look at the spinning lightsaber in this episode. This was the first time that people realized that these lightsabers spin.
Yeah, it was a direct rip off of that toy.
Yeah. So before Star Wars Rebels, there was a Hasbro lightsaber toy that came out, which had like the exact same handle, and you just kind of flicked your wrist in a twist motion, and these the blades would kind of cycle around. And I think it was released as a General Grievous lightsaber.
Yeah,
toy.
it was. Yeah, that's right. So you could replicate Grievous's lightsaber spinning around in a circle. That was the idea. It came with like different saber parts. You could adjust it and like replace pieces. You could have lightsaber daggers. And, I don't know. It was
weird.
I guess the first build your own lightsaber toy with this weird spinning mechanism. I don't know.
Yeah,
Hasbro throwing stuff at the wall.
Since then, they've made like the craziest looking stuff, like 2 blades on each end, and you get like a helicopter saber. Like,
Oh my gosh.
So
I remember as a kid, I was really into that, trying to do like lightsaber stuff, like designs.
Yeah.
To make like a sniper rifle with a lightsaber on the bottom, or what was the other? There was a design I found that was a 4-bladed lightsaber. It's kind of like a staff saber, but it splits out to have 2 on each end, like tridents almost, but 2.
Like like dark Ray's lightsaber, but duplicated, like on the other side.
Yeah, on both sides, exactly.
Yeah. That's
Just
like the
random.
most. That's like the most 13-year-old thing to try and think of, right? Like, but
A
then
13-year-old thing, and then J.J. Abrams.
yeah. But then also Star Wars Visions. I mean, like that one Inquisitor.
Right,
in
but
Star
that's
Wars
anime,
Visions.
so
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of
like,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, there's a little bit more of an asterisk, I think, when you do anime, because I think in like anime series, weapons and stuff are often pretty unique.
Right. Yeah, definitely stylized and whatever else.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw the spinning lightsaber in Star Wars Rebels, just the feeling that I got was, this is strange.
I was okay with it up to the point where I could fly. That was right through the line.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
that was where I drew the line too. I mean, here's the thing about these lightsabers though. I always thought, based on what I'd known at the time from the EU, that the kyber crystal within the hilt was a direct source with a laser that went through a series of emitters and amplifiers and whatever out the top to create the blade, right? So I didn't really understand the science as to how the emitter can twist and turn out of line from that power source, because then you just have the rail going around, right? And I just didn't really understand how that was supposed to work.
Some sort of tube inside there, maybe? I don't know.
Well, like you can look up blueprints of lightsabers online, and
They conveniently skip this one.
yeah, like you get the blueprints of the old legacy lightsabers, like Darth Vader's lightsaber and Obi-Wan's and Luke's and whatever, Anakin's, and they all just have a very similar kind of basic element structure to it. I mean, even in Jedi Fallen Order or Survivor, like Cal Kestis, he dismantles his lightsaber. Every single component seems to have this logic to it, right? And I think that's kind of the whole design aspect with something Doug Chang has shared in the past, how you should be able to look at these things and know what they do, and just kind of have this understanding as to what these things are for. And I didn't get that.
Practical should always be a practical perspective to it.
Yeah, it should look practical, exactly. And I just never looked at these lightsabers as practical at all. I mean, like they hold them and twirl them like a staff saber, but they're not long enough to do so with two hands. And then on top of that, they have this spinning mechanism that kind of breaks the logic of how the lightsaber hilt works in the first place. So
plus it folds in half for one-handed use.
Right. Yeah. Just like, and they all have their own kind of little mechanism of how they do their spinny trick and whatever. But like, it's just, I don't know. I've always had a bit of a problem with these lightsabers. They've never been overly cool to me. And they all seem to be broken the same way. I mean, I don't want to spoil the end of Rebels, but like Obi-Wan Kenobi did it pretty well, where they just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of seems like the hilt itself is the weak spot. And then in Rebels season 2, there's also a moment in which like, the spinny thing fails on one of the lightsabers, and that ends up, being detrimental. And it's just like, really, and even Ahsoka, like she sticks her lightsaber blades between the holes of someone's Inquisitor blade at one point, and where it's not, because when it's spinning, there's still like an empty gap between the top and bottom half of that person's fist. So it's like you can just stick a lightsaber in there and slice upwards, and boom, done, right? Anyways, the relationship.
I think it's supposed to be more of an intimidation thing, like make them panic.
Maybe.
But joke's on them, because Obi-Wan fought Grievous, who had 4 of them.
See, that's the thing, right? Like I want to get a Star Wars story which explains the logic of these lightsabers, and I also want to get a story in which it shares why they all have the same design. Like the hilt changes per Inquisitor, but like why do they all have the spinny lightsaber? Is it like a uniform thing, or
do they change? I thought they were all the same.
No, all the hilts look different. Like across the board, like all the Inquisitors have different hilts. Yeah, but they all have the same double-bladed, spinny design to it. And I never really understood why that is. Like, is there like a purpose other than uniform? Is there any other purpose to why, this is a good lightsaber to have, right? I would like to get a Star Wars story that explains all that. Anyways.
Just the trademark of their fighting style, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. The relationship between Kanan and Ezra tries to pawn him off, but ends up getting stuck with him in the end, much like Anakin and Obi-Wan. I thought that was an interesting parallel.
No, it's a good point. I didn't even think about the comparison to that. So I did feel the whole time, and as we saw in the story as it progressed, um, Kanan definitely doesn't feel up to training Ezra and is trying really hard to pawn him off.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like he was being a bit of a dick, honestly. He's like, how do I get rid of this kid? Like, he doesn't want. He's still, where his character is at, he's still very detached from his former life as a Jedi, and I think he's still uncomfortable to reignite that.
Sorry, say again?
I was saying, I think Kanan is still feeling detached from being a Jedi, and he's uncomfortable to like go back to that way of life.
Yeah, I could see that. I think he's also feeling like a failed master too, because he's clearly having a rough time teaching Ezra. I mean, Zeb points that out at the beginning of the episode. So I think perhaps for Kanan, he just feels like Ezra can benefit better if he was trained under an actual Jedi master and not just...
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even a knight. He was just a Padawan.
That's right. Yeah, and I don't think we've even mentioned that so far in Rebels Talk. But yeah, Kanan Jarrus is actually a Padawan. You know, he never made it to be a Jedi Knight. He never got to be a knight or a master. He got away when he was quite young as a boy, and we had a cameo of him in the Bad Batch. And you know, it's
opening scene,
and I guess at this point, if anyone's seen the Bad Batch, it's not really a spoiler. But his real name isn't actually Kanan Jarrus; it's Caleb Doom. And Doom. That's right. So yeah, that's the episode. I don't really know who Brent Spiner played. Do you have an idea of who he perhaps played
in this episode?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It says he was in.
He played the space whales. He did the voice of the noise of the space whales that were humping the Phantom.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
don't know.
I found it.
Okay.
I found it. It's Gall Travis. He's the voice on the hologram that reveals.
Oh yeah.
That reveals what's happened with Luminar on Dooley.
Were you surprised though that they had a scene where there was flying like whale bats that were getting frisky?
Yeah, just getting frisky with the Phantom. Yeah, that was interesting.
I was like, this is a kids show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's birds and the bees. I'm sure they're aware, but it doesn't seem like something you would normally put in a kids cartoon.
It's a mating call. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, it's like...
And then just ramming against the Phantom.
Yeah, they hitting that thing hard.
Oh my gosh.
All right, season 1, episode 6, Breaking Ranks. Oh, sorry, before we move on, is there any other notes that you had which we haven't brought up?
Just that I still think Lothcats look really stupid.
I agree. All right, sweet.
I've never liked their design, and I thought it was worth just like they look like the most un-Star Warsy thing to me.
They look like something
an anime.
Totally. Yeah, I was gonna say they look like something out of an anime. Anyways, season 1, episode 6, Breaking Ranks. This episode was an interesting one. Clearly a bit of a time gap between the last one and this one. This episode was directed by Stephen G. Lee. The writer was Greg Wiseman. Guest stars David Shaughnessy, Liam O'Brien, Dante Basco, Eric Lopez, and Brighton James. This episode also premiered on Disney XD November 3rd, 2014. And the summary goes as such. Ezra goes undercover as an Imperial Academy cadet to help foil a shipment of Kyber crystals. Thanks to his training, Ezra quickly proves the most capable student in the class. During his operation, he befriends fellow cadets Zer Leonis and Jai Kell, the former whom has similarly infiltrated the academy in search of his missing sister, Dara. After completing the mission, Ezra discovers that the Inquisitor, having taken notice of his and Jai's abilities, intends to take them prisoner. With Zer and the other rebels' help, the three are able to fight their way out of the facility during an Imperial Walker training exercise. Jai goes into hiding with Zer, while Zer remains at the academy to continue his search for Dara. That summary is slightly inaccurate since it was actually the Imperial officers that reported Ezra's abilities or, insane kind of skills to the Inquisitor as suspicious. So this episode was interesting because it actually introduces Zer Leonis to Star Wars canon, who is most notably the main protagonist of an offshoot Star Wars Rebels story called Servants of the Empire, which is a 4-book junior novel series. First one is called Edge of the Galaxy. Second is called Rebel in the Ranks. The third one is called Imperial Justice. And the fourth one is called The Secret Academy. And this junior novel series was very well written. I read all of them. In fact, I owned copies of all of them. And they told the offshooting story of Zer Leonis going on the search for his sister and what he does after he stays at the academy by the end of the episode. So if anyone wants to know more about Zer Leonis, perhaps we can do an episode kind of like later down the road about Zer. He crosses over with the Rebels crew on more than one occasion. And the timeline of the events of his story, I think, overlap with some point in season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. So we got a lot of time to cover that story. So maybe at some point in Rebels Talk, we can hit that.
We're
hit
looking
that subject
into
for sure.
because I think there's going to be. I'm pretty sure that it comes up again later on in the series as well.
Yeah, he does show up again. Yeah.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't remember what happens, so I feel like I can speculate. I think her, as well as what they were going to do with Ezra here, was I think they weren't going to be imprisoned. They were going to be trained to be Inquisitors.
I think that's the idea. Yeah.
I think that's going to be the reveal. I think maybe I don't remember if we ever see his sister later and she is an Inquisitor. I think that'd be really interesting if that happened.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. I guess the perspective from Ezra is that they will be taken prisoner, but you're right. That's actually not the reality. The reality is any really gifted student are going to be taken into custody and then taken elsewhere where they're trained at a secret facility, and that's part of Zer's story. And that's kind of what happened to his sister as well. Is coming into contact with the Inquisitors and what goes on at this Imperial facility, because the Empire has so many projects going on, right? It's interesting what it does, because this series was coming out, I guess, when the sequel trilogy was about to come out as well, and there is surprisingly enough, some connective tissue between Zer's storyline and the sequel trilogy as a whole. So,
that's interesting, and everyone would have expected that.
Yeah. I remember reading the book series and remembering it to be very good. I've always been impressed with the junior novels. Other than the ones that I've read in the High Republic, I feel like the junior novels have been very pleasing to read. You know, they've always been quite good stories. So, Ezra is spotted as too good, and this test. All right, I just want to talk about this test for a second. This test is incredibly rigorous for meager stormtroopers.
I was thinking that too. That's one of my notes. I thought it was pretty bizarre that we see them like climbing these floating boxes, and they gotta jump and do all the stuff to get out. And I was thinking, when do we ever see stormtroopers do that?
Like never.
Never. They're very clumsy and incompetent. So I was like, why do they have to go through this training if they're so terrible?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We heard the music from the Clone Wars episode called The Box, which this whole event of these floating boxes going around was a plot or one of the obstacle courses in the box that we saw Obi-Wan undercover as a bounty hunter in. This was an episode that kind of mimicked that. So it was cool. I thought it was interesting and clever of Kevin Kiner, the composer of both Clone Wars and Rebels, to kind of call back to that episode, kind of in the music.
I didn't realize the same music. I recognized the box mechanics though from the Clone Wars episode. I was wondering if it's supposed to be the same thing. I think in Clone Wars it was custom made to test them. So maybe since then it's been standardized, put a patent on it or something.
Yeah, something like that, maybe. Yeah. Hera and the crew are waiting for Ezra for a while, I assume, because I highly doubt that he just kind of went in and over the course of a couple of days managed to, get approved as an Imperial cadet and then also get to this level of the testing and whatever. Like, can any schmuck just off the street go in and, say, I want to be a cadet? And if they're a kid, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll sign you up. Like, how does that even...
It seems like...
Yeah.
We talked a bit about this last week, where it seems really strange to me that they would train stormtroopers from kids this young, unless it's some sort of like youth thing, like cadets. Like in the West here, we have like you can sign up to be a cadet, but it's like you're not actually in the military. You just, I guess, learn some basics of the military, but it's more of like a prelude recruitment thing.
Yeah.
Or like military school, stuff like that, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I had.
But you wouldn't. But they say specifically in this episode, the commandant, he's like, you will go on to be stormtroopers. I was like, are they actually part of it? The proper training program then?
Yeah, because they're a little short to be stormtroopers. It's like, how long are they going to be in this cadet program?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love Agent Callus's line in this episode when Ezra and Zare are sneaking about. And Ezra decides Ezra, he's going to help him steal the decoder. And so he knocks on Agent Callus's door as a diversion and says, like, here's the pod racer parts you ordered, sir. And he's like,
yeah.
What? There must be some mistake. What would I want with pod racer parts? And I was like, this is probably one of the stupidest, funniest things I think I've seen in this
delivery from Jabba
in this episode. Yeah, I know, right? It's like this along the same lines of verbal cameo, I guess, but then at the same time makes no sense to have in this particular scenario. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
It's so ridiculous that I think it would rouse suspicion.
Yeah, it's like, what are you trying to do, man? Like tell him that his.
See, TIE fighter parts.
Yeah, TIE fighter
even
parts.
that much of a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like here you have to sign off on the new pod racer or the TIE fighter parts that are coming into the hangar. Wait, what? It's like, anyway, I thought pod racer parts was a little weird.
No, I caught my ear too. That was very strange.
The crystal in the big Imperial transport is en route to Project Stardust, of course, which blows up. We find the giant kyber crystal explosion eat away at the TIE fighters as it's expanding in a giant blast. And we've seen a blast like this before in the Clone Wars. If anyone watched the proxy animation episodes that were unreleased as full finished episodes, you can find them on the bonus features of the Blu-ray or on YouTube. And these are episodes which never got finished, and they ended up releasing the proxy animation with all the dialogue included. Very similar plot line where Sidious is still, very actively building the Death Star behind the Republic's back and acquiring these massively large kyber crystals, which drives the Death Star laser, which is capable of blowing up a planet. And wherever he's finding these giant kyber crystals, no idea. But the idea
they seem to be across the whole galaxy.
They seem to be kind of here and there, I guess. Yeah, and this was just another extension of that plot. And I thought it was
the first
clever.
one was Utapau, right? And then,
yeah. First one was Utapau.
And then
second one was
Jeddah.
I feel like, did we see an episode in the Bad Batch with a kyber crystal in it as well?
Oh, I think so.
I'm blanking on whether or not we had an episode with a giant kyber crystal, but I feel like maybe in the Bad Batch we had a plot that included a giant kyber crystal at some point.
I think there's one from that ice planet as well.
Yeah.
Where all the younglings go to get their sabers in Clone Wars.
Right. Yeah, and then of course the escape, which was a pretty narrow. But they all get away. Jai gets put into hiding, and Zer Zer pretends to fire at the speeder as they're driving off to cover it up, and the Inquisitor kind of approaches him when he finally gets there, and I guess perhaps we can assume that that's how, he gets taken into custody or into the care of whatever facility he's going to next, and that's where Zer's book series Secrets of the Empire picks up. So anyone wishing to check that out, it's not too hard to find the ebook or down at your local bookstore or whatever. It's great junior novel series. I really liked it a lot. So
I don't think we see it in Bad Batch, but there is an episode later on in Rebels where they find another one and they're up to it. Saga Arrows.
Oh,
so maybe that's where.
I think maybe that I don't know what I'm thinking of, but yeah, who knows. Right, any last notes for this one?
Well, we covered all my notes.
Awesome. Season 1, episode 7, Out of Darkness. This episode was interesting because it is also an extension of something we saw in Clone Wars. So this episode was directed by Stuart Lee. Writer was Kevin Hops, and this episode aired on Disney XD November 10th, 2014. Guest starred nobody. And this plot, Chopper's antics cause Ezra and Zeb to forget to carry out an important repair on the Phantom. They forget to check the diagnostics. Hera and Sabine set out on an abandoned Republic asteroid base to retrieve supplies provided by Fulcrum, who is now at this point providing them Rebel intelligence network information to Hera. And then they basically carry out missions that this Fulcrum person is giving them. Fulcrum is an anonymous informant whom Hera has been in contact with. Sabine voices her displeasure towards Hera's secrecy about the mission, feeling as though neither she or Kanan can trust her. Due to the fuel tank leaking on the Phantom, the two are left stranded on the base, which is infested with deadly Fernox.
Fernox.
That's right. The two work together to survive the creatures just long enough that the rest of the crew can rescue them aboard the Ghost, allowing Sabine to overcome her trust issues while Hera tells her to have faith in the growing rebellion. So this was an interesting story arc for Sabine, and this is also apparently the last episode that takes place in 5 BBY. That is 5 years before episode 4. I don't really know.
So we can assume that it's near December.
Yeah. I don't really know where that information comes from. I don't know if it's from maybe the new Star Wars Timelines book or somewhere else, but that was what's on the Wikipedia page. And the follow-up episode is the first episode to take place in 4 BBY. So kind of interesting little point to make. At this point, they're working under Fulcrum. It's very obvious at this point. So since the introduction to Bail Organa, which was a few episodes ago, since then, they have, I guess, been reached out to by his network of spies.
Interesting. So prior to this, they weren't working for Fulcrum, but now they are?
Exactly.
In between episodes?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. I think that there should have been an arc there where they decided to start working for Fulcrum.
Well, I always thought that
dodgy about doing it.
Yeah, because I've always thought to myself, episode 3, which was Droids in Distress, that's the episode where Bail Organa has had R2 spying on Hera's crew the entire episode. And he basically fills him in on this particular rebel cell. So I always assumed that because Fulcrum is working for Bail, I always assumed that at this point, when Fulcrum's introduced to the story, that, with Sabine's kind of distrust of this, whole scenario, I always thought that maybe it was like a more recent development that kind of happened between the episodes, between the time gaps of season 1, episode 5 and 6, or perhaps episode 4 and 5, or something like that. Maybe even between 6 and 7. I just got the feeling that maybe Fulcrum coming into their crew as an informant or whatever is a bit of a recent kind of development. Like, did you get that feeling, or was that just me?
You're probably right, but I, for some reason, just because there were no nonchalant, Hera was so nonchalant about it, it felt like she had been working for Fulcrum for a long time.
Gotcha. Yeah. I guess she's got the trust, right?
But yeah, it is interesting, especially like I feel like the interaction between Hera and Sabine. It really felt like Hera and Kanan had been working for Fulcrum for a while now.
Yeah,
But
it's tough to say, right? Because Fulcrum
right,
wasn't a
though.
thing in the novel either. So between
yeah, I think there's a missing story element here. Then that there should have been some sort of drama around working for Fulcrum.
there should have been, yeah, there should have been like a very last episode scene or something like that with them getting a transmission from a Fulcrum and request to meet or somewhere or whatever, right?
Because it makes sense they need to work for someone else after the last job went south when they were working with like on the guy's name, but
Scumbag Vizago.
with the disruptors. That's the one, Scumbag Vizago.
Yeah. Something about this episode is Sabine and Hera end up on a planet called Anaxis. And this is where a Republic base from the Clone Wars has been long abandoned. And this particular base of the Republic was actually featured in the final seasons of the Clone Wars. It was in the Bad Batch arc, in the first episode of the Bad Batch arc in season 7 of Clone Wars. And since then, something very drastic has happened because now the planet has been like blown to smithereens and there's asteroids floating around everywhere. So we do know
Man, I did not realize that was the same planet.
Yeah, we do know that there was a Mace Windu episode in that Bad Batch arc in which they dismantle or disarm a giant bomb, which is kind of been planted there by the Trade Federation or something or another. And I got the feeling that maybe since the Clone Wars in those 15, 14 years, perhaps this bomb has actually been triggered or set off somehow and end up blowing up this planet to smithereens or a big chunk of it. Because when we saw this planet in Clone Wars, it was colorful. There was no asteroids. It wasn't depressing looking place or anything like that. And now it's quite the opposite. So something's happened there, and we don't have a story as to what exactly. I was hoping maybe in the Bad Batch show in season 3, perhaps maybe we get the answers to that. But I don't know. I'm hoping for a lot of things for season 3, including maybe some answers as to
It's a lot to reveal. Maybe that was one of the Clone Wars episodes that got canceled.
Yeah, maybe. Rex and Wolf and Gregor. I mean, we know that Gregor showed up in Bad Batch so far, but Wolf has not. I'm hoping that maybe we get an episode which brings him into the fold and kind of explains why Rex, Wolf,
They're
and Gregor,
retired.
Yeah, why they give up the fight, kind of fighting for their clones, and why they just end up chilling in a desolate
I don't know what they're
planet
gonna.
somewhere.
I don't know what they're gonna do about that, especially because two of them. Well, maybe just Rex. Rex is on the run. I don't know about the other.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think that's going to be the hardest part of Bad Batch season 3 is really making that connective tissue between the Bad Batch and Star Wars Rebels. Unless they plan on doing another animated show between those events, I could totally see that as well. But yeah,
I'm gonna take a guess that Rex takes on someone else's identity
yeah, maybe
because they're clones.
yeah,
That's the only thing I can think of.
yeah, maybe. Who knows? Kanan's Jedi Master Wisdom joke of hearing them outside the door, I thought that was a good laugh.
Just trying to explain the do or do not. There's no try.
No, when Zeb and Ezra are kind of, it's like, oh, how do we tell Kanan that we messed up on the Phantom, and he's like meditating in his room, and he's like, we'll just approach it and we'll just tell him, and then the door opens up and. He just kind of revealed, like, I didn't need to. He's like, Hera and Sabine are in trouble.
You can sense it?
He's like, well, you can sense it. He's like, I heard you outside the door. I thought that was like such a smart ass thing to say.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Jedi joke, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the monsters in this episode were pretty cool because it was very pitch black. Have you ever watched that series with Vin Diesel in the first movie?
Right.
Riddick trilogy.
Yeah.
Or the monsters they like can't go in sunlight, so they only attack in the shade. Then they got to deal with things blocking out the sun.
Yeah, the creatures had a very I Am Legend complex about them, like the zombies. Like
Yeah,
they
that
just
too.
couldn't touch sunlight or whatever. Like there was something interesting about that too. Yeah.
And you said the name was like similar to Minox, right?
Yeah, Fernox.
Fernox. I wonder if there's any correlation between the two. They feed on power or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wikipedia page. I mean, that's always helpful. Let's see here. Yeah, they're. I don't know. It doesn't say much about them, honestly. They've only shown up in Rebels and they were in the Bad Batch episode in Clone Wars, but that was about it.
Oh,
they've been mentioned, maybe. No, yeah, mentioned in a Poe Dameron book, and they're in a Crash of Fate, and that's about it. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the final episode here, unless you got any other notes.
I just thought it was funny that Ezra's just always trying to be a hero in every episode now. So he jumps in to try to save Sabine and just immediately gets like taken out.
Yeah, just destroyed.
That was hilarious. It just backfires so hard.
I love how he tries to
I'll
play it
save
cool.
you.
Yeah, I love how he tries to play it cool too. Hey Sabine, thanks for saving me back there. Yeah, don't read too much into it, kid. All right.
Yeah, so suave.
So yeah, totally. Season 1, Episode 8, Empire Day, directed by Stephen G. Lee. Writer was Henry Gilroy. Guest stars David Shaughnessy, D. Bradley Baker, David Accord, Brent Spiner, Kath Soucie, and Peter McNichol. This episode premiered on Disney XD November 17th, 2014. And the summary goes as such. Kanan tries to teach Ezra how to use the Force and to make a connection with other living creatures. The rebels destroy the Empire's new prototype TIE fighter during a parade celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Empire's creation. Ezra, who turns out is born on the original first day of the Empire's creation, has turned 15 years old today. He's preoccupied with his feelings toward his missing parents and opts out on the mission. He soon discovers that his parents' Rhodian friend, Sibo, is wanted by the Empire and rejoins his friends to look for him. Sibo is found hiding in the basement of Ezra's old house, where Ezra reveals his parents were actually arrested for making anti-Empire radio broadcasts, after which Sibo has gone to work for the Empire. The rebels learn that Sibo has allowed himself to be implanted with the cybernetics so that he could steal information that is valuable to the Empire. Through the sheer amount of information he's uploaded has affected his mind. The rebels smuggle him off the Lothal aboard the Ghost. During the ensuing chase led by the Inquisitor, Sibo regains his senses and reveals that he knows what happens to Ezra's parents. To be continued. So this is the first episode to take place in 4 BBY. I guess that's based on Empire Day. And Empire Day is the first day that Sheev declares himself as Emperor of the Empire. So we saw the very first, the first inaugural Empire Day in Revenge of the Sith at the very end of the film when Sidious declares the Republic as the grand, or the Galactic Empire at that point. That's Empire Day.
That's the founding of the Empire.
Yeah. The Imperial Anthem, which there is one. The Imperial Anthem is called Glory to the Empire, which is a twisted, upbeat version from John Williams' Imperial March.
I've noticed they've done that a few times across Star Wars, taking like theme music that we know from the movies and shows and then playing them in universe.
Yeah.
An example, I think I forgot to mention it actually, but in the most recent season of Mandalorian, when we're following the Doctor, the scientists on Coruscant, when they're at the Coruscant Fair, they're actually playing the March of the Resistance theme
Yeah.
But it's in universe.
That's right. Yeah, it's like
I don't know how I feel about them doing that, but it's become a thing.
it has become a thing. Yeah. And here's the Glory to the Empire song. Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about it either. Like, on the one hand, I think it's kind of clever. On the other hand, I don't really like them breaking that wall.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it makes sense. Like, it's an easy thing to do to make that correspondence. So you already know what the song is, like the theme song, who it's for, what it's about, and
Yeah.
so you already get that connection. But it also feels a little meta. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Empire Day was the name of a holiday in Canada and the United Kingdom for other countries celebrating the British Empire. Held on or near to the 24th of May, Queen Victoria's birthday, between 1898 and 1958. Coincidentally, the day on which the world premiere of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, was held in London. The 20th of May 1980 fell close to this date, and so the term Empire Day was used in marketing for the premiere event.
That's funny.
So I guess there is a bit of an Easter egg
Empire Strikes
there.
Back, Empire Day.
Yeah. Yes, there was a bit of an Easter egg there when I guess coming up with a name for this holiday in universe.
It's kind of neat. I mean, yeah, I always assumed it just had to do with the family of the Empire. I didn't realize it was also kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of clever. It's also so Ezra's birthday turns out to be on Empire Day, so we get a solid clarification for how old he is, and he is 15 years old. So there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So he is 14 when we first
Yeah,
meet
we were
him.
pretty close.
Yeah, I feel
That's his
like
birthday. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so he was 14, now it's 15.
where did we read that it was like 17 years old? Was that like maybe that was a bad piece of information from somewhere? But I feel like we were talking about this like 2 episodes ago.
Wikipedia, I assume, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I think it was Wikipedia. Yeah. Can't trust what you find on the wiki.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
man.
yeah, there we go.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Well, they are recruiting. Remember, they are recruiting to get more people to help out.
Yeah.
Keep this stuff on track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, small note to the Supreme Emperor, Ezra Bridger's age. Time to update. This was actually it's an interesting little thing to note, but Ezra's birthday is apparently 2 days before the birth of Luke and Leia on Polis Massa. I wasn't aware that.
Oh man,
the
he's
time gap
older than Luke.
by like 2 days. Yeah, so he's basically the same age.
Yeah, but man, I guess because we follow him so at a young age, I just assumed he was younger than Luke by like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like, it is kind of interesting. It's interesting to me that where he is in life at this present moment, this is a couple of years after the events of Kenobi, in which we've now seen a very young Luke Skywalker at the age of 10.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, going forward in Star Wars, it's worth knowing that Ezra and Luke are, in fact, the same age, which, it's interesting. It's interesting. Lothal Imperial shipyards are, in fact, responsible for the creation of the TIE Advanced Starfighter. This is a prototype model, but will, in fact, be later used as the TIE fighter that Darth Vader ends up flying around.
I was wondering what was going on with that because they call it an advanced TIE fighter in the show, and then we know Darth Vader's TIE fighter is a TIE Advance. So, and the different kind of designs to it.
Yeah, so
I was starting to think, did they just not have an original name? So there's an advanced TIE fighter and a TIE fighter Advance.
yeah, the TIE Fighter Advanced X1 is the one that Darth Vader drives, and
Okay.
the TIE, I think it's just, what is it called? TIE Advanced or something.
When I tried to look it up, yeah, when the show they call it the Advanced TIE Fighter, but if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's just the Inquisitors TIE.
Yeah. The Inquisitors TIE Advanced. Yeah. So I don't think that's actually a proper model number for it. On the sidebar of the Wikipedia page, though, it does say it's called, the model is the TIE Advanced version 1 prototype.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Speaking of this being the Inquisitor's TIE Fighter, though, did you notice his helmet?
Oh, I remember he's got a custom helmet, right?
He's got this really
Like,
crazy looking
it's unique.
visor helmet. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It looks pretty cool. Like, I think it's because his head is a weird shape, so I couldn't just give him a regular trooper helmet.
Yeah, it would fit like the Hasbro Black Series Poe Dameron one did on us.
Yeah. Chin just sticks out so far.
Yeah, it's just basically a hat.
Yeah. Covers up to his nose.
Yeah. Not even.
They should
Try eyebrows.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious. Can't see anything with the blast shield down.
Yeah. But with the blast shield so high up, how is it supposed to protect my head? How am I supposed to fly?
Quiet, you.
The cybernetic Rhodian Zebo. This cybernetic implant is very similar to what we see on Lobot in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And it turns out that okay, remind me again, how does he snap out of his daze? Does he get like hit on the head or something? Like does he like recover, or like what happened?
I think there's a trigger word, so I think it clicked in that he was with Ezra Bridger is what happened.
Oh, I see.
He
Okay.
remembered who Ezra was.
So my thoughts are that maybe this is a very recent installation. I find it's interesting that Ezra's parents, we learn that they're actually rebels, and again, maybe not part of the larger network, but they're doing what they do to stand up against the larger empire. They kind of reminded me of perhaps like Marva, right? Ezra's parents. They kind of reminded me of Marva from Andor. They just want to stand up against the empire and do what they believe, and kind of speak out against what they're doing on their homeworld. And their friend Sibo is obviously involved with that. And it's unclear as to who Zebo might be working with, that he's actually willing to sacrifice his brain to get this implant stored so that he can run away with all the secrets that they got.
Or his circumstance. Like to me, it felt like he was involved maybe early on for the parents who were deceased, and then he kind of just, if he went to just try to survive and work for the Empire, and then he kind of got himself caught up in something. Now he's got to go on the run.
Yeah,
He
it's
learned something he shouldn't have.
right. Yeah, there's that possibility as well. I don't even know if we ever get an answer to that, but yeah.
This felt like a part 1 episode, so I guess we'll know when we watch episode 9.
Yeah,
Maybe he'll
that's
come back
possible.
later. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's
I thought it was interesting though that they said when you have these implants, it basically strips you of personality. So that's why I guess Lobot seems so robotic.
right.
He gave up his name. His name used to be Terrence, but he became so lacking of emotion they just called him Lobot.
We'll call you Lobot. Just imagine like
Affirmative.
a scenario just like Solo. He's like standing there. Yeah. What's your last name? Who are your people? Nothing. I'm on my own. All right. Well, Solo's taken, so we'll just call you Lobot.
There you go.
Low.
Solo's
So
taken.
low.
Everyone's trying to get that name, but it's already taken.
We'll ditch the SO and go with low. The later half.
Because feeling low today.
Yeah, that's right. Feeling low.
So
all right,
they mentioned though that through Zebo that there's a 5-year plan for Lothal as well as the local planets. So I think we more or less see this is kind of a prelude, I think, or a foreshadowing to what we see that happens over across the next few seasons.
Yeah, that's a good point because I guess perhaps the length of the show, even being a 4-season show, basically covers that whole plan, and really like the show does end up concluding a plot to the whole Lothal thing, and I think it's a good story. It's a good story what they got going on on Lothal, and I think like what you were saying last time is it's far enough away from a lot of the other planets that perhaps maybe it's less in the spotlight intentionally, that it doesn't need to be like a crazy big deal that impacts events in the rest of the films that surround the original trilogy, right?
Again, I think we mentioned this last episode, it was one before, where it's really just showing how the Empire corrupts stuff over.
Yeah.
So like they come in and try to, be everyone's saviors, whatever, like just bringing peace and security, and then they slowly just turn to tyranny and like strip mining and pollution and all this sorts of thing, and just the people who were there, their home is just no longer recognizable.
Right. Yeah, it's a sad story, but it's the Empire, right? Well, that's pretty much all we got for today. Is there any last minute things you want to bring up before we wrap it up here?
I guess I would just say that overall, I think I'm enjoying Rebels more this time around than I did the first time. Maybe just I didn't have the standards coming right out of Clone Wars, so I knew the bar is not as high this time around. So I'm actually enjoying it more than I expected.
Yeah, I hear you. I think with the bitterness gone on my end, like, when I first watched the show, and I've seen it since, and each time it's gotten a little bit better. It's aged a bit better on me. There's still some things that are quite cheesy about it, but it is admittedly for a younger audience than Clone Wars was, but I think the story itself and what we're able to take away with the character arcs and so on and so forth is it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Sure. Do we need to rate these real quick?
Yeah, let's run through it real quick. Yeah. Pablo points or poodoos. For those who don't know, our rating system is a scale of 7. 3 Pablo poodoos is the absolute worst. Moving up from there, 2, 1 Pablo poodoos, and then in the middle, 50% is a bendu. Pablo points consists of 1, 2, or 3. 3 being the absolute best. So, what would you give the first episode of this?
I like this one. This is the one with Luminara and her manipulated force remains. This one was pretty cool. I think I'd give it a solid, say, 1.5 points. I think it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I'd give it 1.5. Yeah, that's a good score to give it. What about the follow up to that? Was it breaking ranks?
Yes, because that's the one where they were escaped. They're doing the training and infiltrate and stuff. This one, I think it didn't push the bar, I think, but it may have had some story points where we're gonna need to come back to later. So maybe like setting things up.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna go with half a problem.
Really? I watching, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just aged better on me. I think I would actually put this at like a 2 Pablo points, surprisingly.
Oh
enough.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really high rating for this.
It is, yeah. Had a little bit of comedy in there, but it wasn't crazy over the top, and it connected to a larger story. It had carried forward a plot from well, I mean, it's the Death Star. I mean, it's a good little plot to kind of Easter egg in there. And then, maybe I just really like the character of Zara Leonis. That Servants of the Empire book series was really great. So, I quite liked seeing this episode a lot. And then...
Maybe you can convince me. I'll bump it up to 1 point.
Nice. Season 1, episode 7, Out of Darkness, the one with Hera and Sabine getting trapped on the moon. I think that one is a solid bendu for me.
I'll give this one the 0.5. It was very fillery,
Yeah.
but as far as like trying to be somewhat creative, at least the monsters were kind of cool. Because to me, it was like kind of the main thing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And Empire Day. I think I'm going to give this one a 0.5 Pablo point.
Oh man, okay. I was gonna give this one. I'll give it a 2 because I thought this one was probably the most interesting of the whole batch.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it had the most story stuff going on. We're learning a lot more about Ezra's backstory. There's a lot more going on. It was a direct conflict with the High Inquisitor, and the growing of the universe with Empire Day, and seeing all the people, seeing like how they are on planet. Even just like they go to a local bar and like troopers come in, like you have to put on the radio, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
And then it backfires on him. He's like, well, it's mandatory.
That's true. That's a good point. All right. Yeah, you sold me on it. 1 Pablo point.
All right.
All right.
It's
Thanks.
like bartering over here.
Thanks for coming on the show again, sir. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Cool. Sounds good. We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. Thank you to our esteemed listeners at home joining us for another episode of Rebels Talk and following along us at home, watching those Rebels episodes as well, leading up to Ahsoka. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you in the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod or the next episode of Rebels Talk.